Welcome to In the House. I'm Mark Shiver, and this is our third episode. So excited. We have Representative David Willis today. And Representative Willis, thank you for joining us on In the House.
Good morning. Happy to be with you.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been wanting to talk to you for quite some time. You are in your first term, and I've got to ask you, now that you're in your second session, right, this short session, do you feel like a veteran now, or do you still feel like, still got a little bit of navigating to do?
Well, it's funny. I was having this conversation with somebody a few weeks ago. It's like, if I knew what I knew now when we started last year, I feel like I would have been light years ahead of where we started off. And I mean, any new venture that you get yourself into, it always comes with a bit of a learning curve. And so we definitely feel a little bit more like seasoned veterans at this point, but still have a lot to learn.
Yeah, exactly. So you represent the good folks in Union County, District 68. Right. And what prompted you to want to serve? You're a business owner. I mean, life had to be kind of chugging along, and all of a sudden here you find yourself in politics, serving the people.
That's right.
You have that, always wanted to do that?
It's kind of funny. No, I don't. If you'd asked me, 20, 30 years ago, if I would have ever been involved in politics, I would have said, no, you're crazy. But, same thing with my business now. If you'd have told me when I graduated from college that one day I'd own and operate a preschool, I'd have told you you're crazy. So, life has its way of steering you where you're supposed to go and, putting the opportunities in front of you. And I think, our family's been very blessed to have the opportunities that we have. And, my journey really to Raleigh started in 2016 for me in church. And, it was something that I felt like I was being called to do and to serve. And
wow.
Because of my business, I had the opportunity to have the financial support to be able to do this, and the flexibility just from our business model and the amazing staff that we have. And, I had 3 young kids at the time, and I was looking at the landscape around the country and in North Carolina. And I just felt like, if good people don't stand up and folks that have the opportunity to do so, then we have nobody to blame but ourselves. And I felt like I had a responsibility to my children and to my family, to my country. And so I decided to throw my name in the ring, and here we are.
Here we are talking to Mark Shiver on In the House. Who would have thought you'd have such a great day?
That's right.
Let me ask you this. You say you own a preschool. And one of the bills that is working its way through the legislative process has to do with children in preschool. And it's a bill that gives parents more rights about what their children are talked to about in the classroom and by the teachers. Frankly, Representative Willis, as a citizen, I look at this piece of legislation, I feel like it's a no-brainer. I personally don't think you ought to be talking to preschool age children about some of these things that they want to talk to them about. As a preschool owner, as a parent, has this bill caught your eye?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I'm, proudest of in my time here has really been fighting for our educational opportunities, our parents' rights, our children's freedom within their education, whether it be related to COVID issues or curriculum or, just school being open in and of itself. And so as an owner of a preschool, and this is the thing that I don't get, for the past 12 years, I mean, every month we provide all of our parents with a snapshot of what's to come. And then they get daily emails from the teachers about what's going on, what their children are learning. So we've been very open and transparent. So when we started looking at this from a K-12 perspective, I was a little surprised by some of the pushback that we got, because, for me as an educator or somebody who's involved in education, you should want folks to know what you're teaching and what you're, working on in the classroom so that they can help them at home. Right. Education isn't a one size fits all type of approach, and the best education usually comes from within the home. And so, parents need to be and should play an active role in their children's education. And so for me, it's a no-brainer and something I think everybody ought to get on board with. And I'll use my daughter. So I have 3 children this year in school. They just finished the school year last Friday, but kindergarten, 8th grade, and 9th grade. And my kindergartner her teacher was phenomenal. I mean, we got daily and weekly emails from her of what they were working on and how, how they were progressing in the classroom. And I just felt very comfortable and knowing what to talk to her about. So when we come home and we sit down at the dinner table, how was your day? And I know how to probe. I know what questions to ask. I know what she's working on, whether it's, literacy or math or what, projects they've been doing. And so it just helped me as a parent be more involved in her education. And I think that's what we're asking for, from all of our staff and all of our teachers across the state.
Well, I was perusing the news headlines this morning in preparation for our time together, and people that are pushing back against this legislation, a lot of them are members of coalitions of the LGBT groups and stuff like that. And not only, Representative Willis, is it important, as you say, that parents are aware of what's being taught, and that's a good thing. It would seem to be a no-brainer. But why do you think, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but this just seems bizarre to me that these groups are wanting to teach these preschool children about sexual stuff. I mean, who in the world is talking to a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old about this stuff? I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, well, as a parent, I don't either. And quite frankly, I mean, if you look at the actual science and behind brain development and where children are, I mean, children aren't sexually aware or aware of some of these issues until they're much older. And so, implanting something early in a child's mind, I think really just has no place in our educational system. I think, a lot of these conversations, a lot of these things need to happen in the home with the parents, allow the parents, the families decide, what to teach and at what point it's appropriate for them for their own individual child, but not, if you've got a classroom full of, 10, 15, 20, 30 kids, not every family is going to feel the same way on every single issue. And so, a lot of this stuff needs to be left to the parents at home, kept out of the classroom, allow them to focus on literacy and writing and math and science and the things that we need to be teaching our children. Now, by all means, I come from a Christian family. We believe in loving our neighbor and treating everyone fairly and equally and not discriminating against anyone. And I think those are the values that should be taught, and it should be taught holistically, across the board as all of humanity. And so I think if we live by those values, then there's no point really in singling out this group or that group or another group. I think we go too far in our society today in dividing into different groups, into different factions, and it doesn't bring us together, but it just divides us further.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I think this is a good bill. I hope that personally, as a citizen, I hope it'll pass. Talking about this legislative session, as opposed to last legislative session, which seemed like it would never end, as you remember. Did anything stand out to you? Was it mostly just let's get the budget done, or was there any kind of any bills that you were involved with, or that you followed closely, supported strongly, felt like helped the people
from
in our state?
From the long session?
Yeah.
Gosh, it did. I mean, it went on forever. I feel like, as a first timer, you don't really have a lot to compare to. Yeah. In terms of, what sessions look like in the past and that you were a part of. And so, for us, it was very long, but I think it was very fruitful. I mean, we've got an amazing budget done that's been, I hate to use it in these terms, but it really was a historic budget for North Carolina. I mean, the amount of money that came in from both North Carolina and from the federal side was unprecedented. We had money for so many different needs across the state that really needed to be addressed and have needed to be addressed for years. And so I think the financial investment that we made in North Carolina from an infrastructure perspective, from a educational perspective, I mean, think about flood mitigation down east. I mean, things that we don't normally talk about maybe locally, but from a broader perspective, broadband across the state, water and sewer issues, there was just so much good in this budget. I think they were going to really move North Carolina forward and really make a huge impact in the future of our state. And so I was proud to be a part of that and to be at the table for those discussions. And so it was a great learning experience for me and a great opportunity, I think, to see where the needs are as we continue to move forward for North Carolina. In terms of, separate bills aside from the budget, some of the things that I was most proud of, I came in and worked right away on a veterans bill, the Wounded Heroes Day bill,
Oh, yeah.
in honor of, a constituent in my district, Sergeant Michael Verardo, who was injured in the line of duty. And,
right.
We've got so many military families and veterans in North Carolina. It was really special to me to be a part of that and to take a lead role in recognizing our wounded heroes. We know North Carolina is really a special place for military with our active duty members and the number of retired folks that we have here. Being able to really recognize and honor them and to try to give a little bit of respect back and gratitude for the service and the sacrifices that they've made was really special. And I think that will, I think that'll speak to a lot of our veterans going forward, that we want them here in North Carolina. We want North Carolina to be the greatest state in the country for our veterans and for our military family.
No doubt, no doubt. And I haven't been here as long as some people, but I've been here a fair amount of years now, and I've watched several different legislative sessions unfold, and I really felt, Representative Willis, like the legislation that was passed in the long session, particularly for the military, was very meaningful. And I began to use that word, which I hadn't used before, because not that stuff isn't meaningful, but it just seemed like a lot of the bills that you guys were running and getting done were really people-centric. A lot of times it's like, as you said, well, there's sewer here and, broadband there. And, it doesn't really touch somebody personally. But these military bills were really, especially the Wounded Heroes, I thought that was outstanding. So I appreciate you being very much a lead in that bill, because we are a military-friendly state, right? No doubt.
That's right. Between the the Wounded Heroes and the tax benefits for the retiree pensions, the educational benefits for military spouses and families, and I think we went a long way in closing the gap of what some other states had in terms of our veterans and their families, over North Carolina. And we're going to continue to push that to make sure that we are the best state in the country for our military families and retirees. Now,
you mentioned the budget, so let's talk about that. Now, a few weeks ago, and it's sort of funny because there was this big headline, we've got $1 gazillion more than we thought we were going to have in revenue. And immediately, from a policy perspective, people on the left were like, let's spend. And yet, as you know, the Republican majority that has been able to craft budgets and do tax reform and basically manage the taxpayer dollars of our state has been very prudent over the last 10 years, 11 years. And so you guys didn't go berserk thinking, hey, let's have a spending spree. Talk a little bit about the budgetary philosophy. And when you came as someone relatively new, did you ascribe to that philosophy of prudence and let's manage the people's money well?
Absolutely. I think, coming from a business perspective and a business background, and I think any family really that manages a budget and kind of understands their constraints from a financial perspective is going to come in and understand that as a state, the government doesn't have any money. It's all taxpayer money. It's all dollars taken from the citizens of North Carolina, and we need to be prudent with that money. There's no finite, there is a finite amount of money that we have. It's not just, we just keep going back to the well and adding more money to it. I think you mentioned, as we saw prior to 2011, North Carolina was in great debt to the federal government, running deficits in the state, and thanks to some prudent financial management and fiscal constraint, we've turned it around. We repaid all of our debt. We're now one of the strongest, financial states in the entire country. And in fact, we're a model for most states, just simply because not only do we have great tax policy that's allowed us to have revenue surpluses, we've also controlled our spending. And I think when you look at other states and especially our federal government, the issue that they have more than anything else, they've not controlled their spending. They haven't lived within their means. And so it's, it continues to drive the deficit forward and to put us in a great hole. And we're seeing a lot of these issues now within, just an unbelievable inflation.
Oh my gosh.
And so forth. And so, when we think about how we want to spend money and the money that we have in North Carolina, we want to make sure, one, that, we're not caught in a jam if something happens. And so we know we're going to have storms. We know there are going to be unforeseen issues coming up. So we've got to have money in the rainy day fund to be able to pay for that. We know we've got employees and folks working for the state and the school systems and all that across the state that we've got to be able to pay and to provide them with, with some raises and then the infrastructure that goes along with managing and operating a state. We know there's money that we're going to have to spend, but we try to do it in a prudent way, in a way that manages and lives within our means, and not just run out and spend just because we have some. And, for years, the prognosticator said, well, these tax cuts aren't going to work. We're going to have huge deficits. We're not going to meet our spending needs. And yet here we are 10, 12 years later, and we're still running with surpluses.
Yeah.
So I think smart fiscal policy has seen North Carolina continue to grow. We've got businesses moving to North Carolina every day, and it's growing our tax base. We've got a ton of folks moving in and out of the state. Obviously more moving into the state rather than out. And so our tax base continues to grow. Our surpluses have held steady. And, we've just got to look at now, how do we effectively continue to manage that going forward and meet the needs that we have?
Talking about people moving here, and I don't want to get caught up against our time, but I do want to ask, it's an exciting time to be a legislator, because economic development here is like, wow. The big Toyota announcement, seems like every day, part of my job is to find positive things to talk about. And it seems like maybe not every day, but every week there's another business that's expanding. 40 employees here, 120 employees there. Then you have these huge announcements with, several thousand employees, with a big thing like the Toyota. It must be exciting to be a part of watching our state kind of kick into another gear from an economic development standpoint.
Yeah, I think if you had a crystal ball and you look down the road and say 20 years, North Carolina is and has been one of the largest leading states in the country for a long time. But I think North Carolina is really well positioned to really be a national leader for years and years and years to come. We've got companies coming in, as you mentioned, Toyota, and coming in with the automotive side. The automotive industry is one that we've long looked at and tried to build the infrastructure that we need to be able to have major automotive manufacturing in North Carolina. Companies like Apple and Amazon and so many others continue to expand within North Carolina. Even in Union County, we recruited a company from Connecticut who's moving its operations to Connecticut, bringing over 200 jobs to Union County.
Wow.
And so we've got a great story to tell. One of the things, and I think this goes really unseen as part of the budget process last time, we've also got money in the budget for the ports in Wilmington and the infrastructure from our railroad perspective, to be able to tie back in to the national grid and to be able to get our distribution, our supply chain. Obviously has been a huge point of contention over the last year and a half. Yeah. And our ability to really expand that for North Carolina and build out what we have is going to be tremendously impactful, especially for Eastern North Carolina and some of the very rural areas where, economic development has been a little bit slower. We've got tremendous opportunities to expand the financial success that we've got for the entire state of North Carolina. And I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to wind up here with, it might sound like a lengthy question, but let me just kind of put several things together. As a new member, you probably came down here thinking, I'm going to do this, I want to do that. I've got a broad vision for the state, maybe a broad vision for my district. But all of a sudden, people are calling your office, maybe, well, I can't get the DMV to help me with this or that. You know what? I've been calling the Unemployment Security Commission for 6 weeks and they won't help me. Representative Willis, I need help. And all of a sudden, I think you probably realized, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or thoughts in your brain, but it's not all the big, wow, we just, attracted a company to our district. Isn't some of the most important work, maybe the most important work that you do, the day-to-day help that you provide for people who just don't know where to turn because there's this, maze of bureaucracy? Talk about that and how you help people from your office.
Yeah, Mark, I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, the number one job that we have here, and I've got an amazing LA, Jalen, who does a tremendous job helping with constituent needs on a daily basis. But the number one issue that we have and pride in what we do is helping the folks back home in Union County. And we get calls from folks across the state, quite honestly. We take much pride in that. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's great that we're able to help folks, and we love doing that, whether it's unemployment or the DMV, as you mentioned, or other issues. And we've had issues with, with veterans benefits. We've had issues with DSS and some other things within the foster care system and
wow.
that folks have need, or, issues with law enforcement, situations for safety and security, and, reaching out and working with our law enforcement folks and helping with those. I mean, that's been tremendous. The relationships that we've built, the people we've been able to help. And I run into folks quite often. They were saying, thank you. We had a gentleman that moved down from New York and was trying to get his title changed. And it took him over a year and he was just banging his head against the wall. Jalen's able to make a couple of phone calls and we're able to get it resolved for him. And so the frustrating part with that is, we're more than happy. We love helping folks and helping them, overcome some of these problems. But,
right.
Government shouldn't be that difficult.
Oh, wow.
It shouldn't take us getting involved for folks to be able to do that. So our pushback to some of these agencies and the departments that we're working with is, look, you guys have to figure out how to operationalize this so that any citizen calls up and gets the help that they need the first time, they don't have to escalate it to someone else. I mean, we're more than happy to do that, and we're more than happy to answer those emails and take those phone calls. But it shouldn't have to come to that. The state of North Carolina should be functioning in a way that's customer centric, and our citizens should come first. And everyone that picks up that phone, whether it's at unemployment or at the DMV or wherever, should look at it and say, hey, how can I help this person? And that's the mindset that we need to get back to. And I think for too long, we, as government, the bureaucracy side of it is just, I hate to say, it seems like they don't care, but often it seems like they don't care.
Yeah.
And so we've got to change that and get back to a customer focused environment for North Carolina. And I think, coming from a business environment, that's how we operate, right? If you don't keep your customers happy, they don't keep coming back. And it shouldn't be, well, you don't have anywhere else to go, so I don't care how long it takes, or that's not my problem. It should be, hey, how can I help you, and how can we solve this problem for this person, and make everybody able to resolve these issues and to feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's great, and it makes sense. You know what, Representative Willis, I knew that I was going to enjoy talking to you. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I think I could talk to you for an hour and not even scratch the surface of some really good conversation. But I know that you're in the middle of a busy day, and so I'd like to just end our time together by saying thank you very much, not only for coming on in the House, but for the just the common sense you bring to the North Carolina House of Representatives. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Mark, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to chat today, and I look forward to many more sessions going forward.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.